How is everybody doing? And welcome back for another Strength Chat episode. And I've got a treat for you all. I'm actually welcoming back a returning guest, a strength and performance coach, an author, and an absolute awesome previous episode as when he was a guest before. Today, I am joined by the one and only Gareth Sapstead. How are you doing?
I'm good. Great introduction, Stephen. Yes, it's,
I,
it's it's good to jump on again. Like the first podcast we did was absolutely fire. Had some great conversations there, and it's always good just to. I quite like podcasts like this where you and I could just chat and just kind of see where things go. So I'm sure this will be another fire episode to to chat everything to do with physique, strength, performance, and everything else.
Nice, cool. Well, I suppose the first question. I know it's been a little bit of time since we've chatted before. I know I've kind of followed your content that you've shared and what you've been putting out there. But how are you? What's been kind of happening in your world? What's kind of changed over the last kind of like year or so?
Yeah, so in the last year, so a couple of big things in the last year, really. So, latest book's been released. That was released about 4 weeks ago in the US. It's just come over to the UK, and then it kind of gets rolled out to the rest of the world soon as well. So, 100 best physique workouts. So, in that book, I say author. I'm more the editor. So, although I'm a contributor and I kind of work all the information around that book and put the book together. Actually, there's a bunch of coaches involved in that book. Loads of coaches writing basically the best workouts, some of their go-to workouts for their clients that are more kind of physique and longevity related. So it's full of those. Great for any kind of strength coach to pick up if they want to see what some of the best coaches in the biz, are looking like in terms of their workouts. We've got like the likes of Luca Hocevar, Jay Ferrugia. We've got, you name it, we've got them in there. Some big like real world coaches in there, like Joe DeFranco, all that kind of stuff. Some brilliant coaches in that book, but then also really good for like general population. So it's very much geared towards um, someone on the high street, go into a bookstore, pick up a book, just want to see 100 workouts and to be able to choose something to try, right? But from a strength coach's point of view, we know that the writers are like top notch guys in the industry. General population, they just kind of want a good list of workouts to be able to dive into. So that's that book. So that's one thing. Second thing, I opened up my own training facility 10 months ago now. You can see some of it behind me. This is like our quiet time, so I can sit on the couch here and actually have this conversation. There's nothing kind of going on around us. And then this will probably be havoc in about another hour and a half's time. So this is mostly geared towards one-on-one personal training. But we're kind of very high-end one-on-one personal training, and then small group personal training. Even small group personal training, the way we do it, it's not like boot camps. It's very much like a lot of customization involved, 2 to 6 people. Um, Work with a lot of athletes as well as like CEOs, business owners, things like that as well. So I've kind of gone back to my roots a little bit over the last 10 months or so with the in-person training. So although last time we spoke, 90% or so of my work was more down the online route. I gradually transitioned to that over the years, and I've kind of flipped that in the last year to the in-person stuff, whilst the online stuff still rolls. Still enjoy that, still crush it with those clients. I've just kind of made myself more busy with the in-person stuff. So yeah, some big things in the last year, or probably even longer since we last spoke. And I've heard big things with you as well. Obviously, moving to another country, all that kind of stuff, exciting
Yeah,
things.
definitely. It's funny when you said there about kind of going back to your roots, and this might be a little bit of a tangent, but my last role in the UK was more I was still doing some in-person coaching, but a lot of my role was kind of like coach development of the kind of like I don't always want to say younger because not everybody who started being a personal trainer is actually really young all the time.
Yeah.
But then going back to moving to Thailand and doing classes, doing more personal training, it kind of I loved doing it before. I had 10 years experience doing it before, but I must admit, and it'd be interesting to hear your thoughts from going from more of maybe admin online side of
Yeah.
things rather than going back into it, it kind of sparked um a little bit more excitement with me, a little bit more wanting to, oh yeah, I've not tried this before, or ah yeah, I'm a little bit rusty at this. I
Yes.
need to get better at this. And as well, actually, working with, there's a few Thai trainers that work at Titan. We've got some Australian trainers and some Italian trainers as well, and just being part of a team, working with other trainers, bouncing ideas off each other. I've really kind of enjoyed that. How have you kind of found, having your facility, doing the in-person things, like how have you found getting back into that?
In all honesty, it's always been my love is the in person coaching side of things. I started out coaching personal training 20 odd years ago. I basically was personal training to put my way through university, and I wanted to be a strength and conditioning coach, and that's the way I trained. I thought I would train like elite athletes, work for some kind of club somewhere, and I did do some of that for a while after I kind of transitioned out of personal training into that. And then I just found I just didn't like to train those athletes in clubs, being really like on that tight schedule, working at X rugby club or X football club, and working just part of their team. So I went out on it alone, probably within the first 5 years or so of doing that. And again, just by doing that, figuring out that actually what I enjoyed was not necessarily the athletes, but actually just general population,
Yeah,
just your average person, the people. Like there are so many people that I train personally right now that are just super interesting people. Business owners, execs, like people that are just have lots of problems to solve in terms of their bodies,
yeah,
which keeps me interested and on my toes as a coach. But then also just interest in terms of like because I'm interested in the business side of things as well. Like how did they get from where they were to where they are right now, and all that kind of stuff. And as much as I love online and I still have that business and love that side of things, you just don't get as much of a personal interaction with that person. So what happened when I transitioned a little bit away from like I've probably been doing online for I think 9 years now. And it just gradually, as it got more and more successful, I obviously employed coaches to work with me as part of my coaching team. But that job ended up becoming a hands-on, gym-based, working with people to a desk job, basically. And now I've kind of got to the point where the desk job has gone. I might do that for half a day a week or something, where it's like check-ins, proper, communication with my clients, all that kind of stuff. And then the rest of the time, I'm on the gym floor. I'm running a small group. I'm running one-to-one sessions. I'm doing 4,000 steps in an hour, just running small group sessions. So I've massively increased my physical kind of output during the day as well as the amount of problems that I have to solve during the day. And as I said, it just kind of keeps me on my toes a lot more. It it's me dusting off coaching skills that I think I've lost as
yeah,
well. And there's only so many like clients can send. I'm big on like form check videos and communication with my online clients, sending all that stuff to me, and you can give them that feedback. But there's nothing that can compete with that hands-on little bit of manipulation. Let's try this instead. Let's try this instead. So that's one thing I've definitely missed and something I'm just kind of, just kind of getting back into the role of things and just remembering some of the stuff that I've forgotten. Um, don't get me wrong. As I said, like the online still love it, and that business will kind of continue to grow. And there are some new online coaching programs that I'm starting to roll out soon, just with a slightly different niche. But the in person coaching for me is where it's at, and also the team of trainers that I have working for me here. I'm enjoying I suppose, the development side within that as well. I
yeah,
suppose similar to what you used to do. So I get that nice mix of in-person development with them and trying to develop them as a team to support our unit in here, as well as that in-person client communication, problem solving, and all that kind of stuff. Don't get me wrong; it's a huge stress added on top of other things. But like I kind of I find myself kind of thriving in that stress and really enjoying that.
yeah. Awesome. Yeah, I think from that one thing you said there about especially the people that you work with, because a lot of the online coaching that I do are from clients who have either like moved away from the Leeds area, or a lot of clients kept working with me online when I moved to Thailand. But a couple of things that you said there about problem solving, and kind of this will be a good kind of transition into the topics I sent over to chat about, but working with different people. So there was a French woman that I was working with in Titan, and she basically had like major surgery and was like bedbound for like 6 months. And then she basically had to um, reprogram herself. I can't think of a better word, or reteach to walk properly. And then she came over to Titan as kind of like, I want to do something. She was originally supposed to go to South Korea, but came to Titan first, basically looking for help, which I thought was crazy, coming from France over, and being able to problem solve what she can and can't do. Some exercises would just cause pain, also from kind of like the mindset point of view.
Yeah.
There was like a huge fear around exercises, and as well being in hospital for 6 months, um, going into classes. There is an element of kind of like smaller strength sessions that we run at Titan, but the last gym that I was at in the UK, similar to yourself, having like between 2 to 6 people, whereas being in that environment, she just wasn't used to it, which was um, uh, great to see her progress, but also kind of a challenge of like, right, how do we progress from this? And I suppose leading into kind of like the topics that we spoke about before, when we talk about a transformation and progress, and I've run transformation programs. I'm sure you've run transformation, and a lot of it is based on kind of like the before and after photographs, and it's kind of like quite a short and intense block, which in some cases is what's needed. But I suppose from your side, when you talk about transformations, you've mentioned there business owners, CEOs. For a lot of people, they might not have time to commit to that block, and the transformation is going to look slightly different. So, how do you kind of do you separate those two? What's your kind of take or definition of a transformation, if you like? And how do you cater that depending on the client that you're working with?
Yeah, good question. I think you hit the nail on the head really in terms of like transformation photos. And actually this is something I've noticed recently with, and I think where the industry is going with us. Now, a few years ago, like before and after photos were like our main firing power, arguably our most powerful social proof as transformation, strength coach, whatever, fitness coach industry, right? We put out lots of before and after photos. It attracts attention, social proof, all that kind of stuff. And there are some great coaches out there that really, their systems, their online coaching systems, rely upon every 6 weeks, every 8 weeks, booking photo shoots, new stream of clients come in. We have, long story short, we basically book out this training facility for people to do photo shoots as well. Because we're a fully private training facility, we probably get at least one online coach a week asking if they can book out our place
Oh,
to
well.
use it for their photos, right? Um, and I see how they do it. It's a great system. They've got a good, I suppose they've got a good conveyor belt going in terms of doing this. They might take 3 or 4 clients, transformation 12 weeks, next one, transformation 12 weeks, 12 weeks, and they just book a photo shoot every 12 weeks. They've constantly got throughout the year these before and after photos going out and recycle. And I completely get it. And the amount of transformations like that I've done are crazy. I've done a lot of those. Some for the front cover of national magazines, Men's Health magazine, the Netherlands, things like that. We've done a lot of high level transformations, and that's where I suppose I gained the biggest notoriety, is the ability to do that stuff And that when you can do that at that level, word kind of gets out and people talk to each other, and you end up kind of picking up a lot of clients that want a similar thing. Now, the trouble with that is you and I both know that that is not sustainable. Doing this 8 week, 10 week, 12 week, whatever, 16 week transformation isn't sustainable. You've also got the reality of most of the time there's a photo shoot that's involved. Perfect lighting conditions in that photo shoot, maybe a little bit of water manipulation going on, carbohydrate manipulation going on, a little bit of baby oil or coconut oil to make sure the lighting's in the right direction. So you are in your absolute prime for a day or two at most, sometimes even a few hours in the perfect conditions. And sometimes even on top of that, there's a little bit of Photoshop involved. And that's what the public is seeing. Now, what's happening with the industry, and I know I'm kind of going off on tangent here, and especially with AI, any of us in theory can create fake or slightly manipulated before and after photos. And that's what we're actually gradually starting to see more, is more people put out these photos or just very slightly AI enhanced versions of these before and after photos. And the consumer is getting a lot less trusting of these before and after photos. So as an industry, I think we've just got to start shift, I think we're going to start seeing a shift away from this before and after photo as a social proof, more towards something else. And I think it's just going to simply go towards the coaches that are the most real and the most communication driven. And at the end of the day, the cream will rise to the top. And I completely get it. People that are using AI and using chatbots, whatever, to communicate with clients, I get it. And I get the idea of trying to scale your business and trying to serve more clients. But I think now more than ever, people are craving that more in person, more personal contact, and even more of a what humans can provide, not what a robot can provide. And at the end of the day, humans are paying for human support and expertise, and not AI. So that, I'm sorry, I'm going off on a bit of a rant here, but that's what I think in terms of that. As far as transformations go, like, yeah, sure, we can do those radical transformations, but as you said, it's intense, and it's intense in terms of the time required to make sure that that happens over, say, a 12-week period. It requires you to be training a lot. It requires you to be tracking all of your food. It requires you to be checking in more frequently than what you might otherwise be doing. So when it comes to the majority of people, especially the people that we work with, business owners, parents, all that kind of stuff, who the majority of coaches are working with, general population, you're kind of doing a much more watered down version of that, but you're also doing a version of that that is way more sustainable than that 12-week transformation. And don't get me wrong, you can do this 12-week transformation, you can do your absolute best with them to try to help sustain those results. You can reverse diet them out of things. You can make sure during that phase we're picking the best exercises, keeping them joint friendly, all that kind of stuff. But it's inevitable that there's going to be a rebound after that. Whereas when we kind of scale that back a little bit and we say, you know what, instead of, I'll give an example, Men's Health, a transformation for Men's Health magazine, Netherlands. He came to me and he said, I've got 11 weeks to do this. And he wasn't out of shape, but let's say he was a little bit fluffy. Okay. And can we do it? I'm like, look, we can do it, but what's going to be required of you straight away is you're going to need to be lifting 5 days a week. You're going to need to be, your cut, because his step count wasn't high, his output wasn't very high, and we didn't want to drop his calories too early, too soon. We had to get a lot of cardio in there straight away. It was 40 minutes of cardio. So let's say that's an hour and 40 minutes each day of training. Plus, he's tracking every single macro that he hits through MyFitnessPal or whatever. He's he's checking in with me every day. A few weeks prior to the actual photo shoot itself, we're water manipulating, carbohydrate manipulating, making sure that he's on point. That's a lot, right? The reason he could do that is because for him to achieve the front cover of Men's Health magazine in the Netherlands, that was actually his job at the time. That was huge for his career. He's the number one sleep expert in the Netherlands. For him to make the front cover of Men's Health magazine, that's his job. So his job, how he saw it, was to transform so he could commit that time. And at the time, he had a 3-month-old baby as well. So it was a bit of a challenge on that front, but he committed his work time towards that. Now, the people that we're working here in particular, and my online coaching clients that are more the high achievers, execs, things like that, they're people that might only be able to train 3 days, 4 days a week. We're not doing like a push pull lower rotational kind of split. We're doing maybe an upper lower split, or we're doing full body workouts. We're having to maybe sneak some conditioning in that session, like finisher type stuff, because you can't commit to 20, 30, 40 minutes or something of cardio during the day. We're maybe having to set step targets, but be relatively loose about the step targets, because we know some days you're just not going to be able to hit them, unless it's at 10 o'clock at night and you finish your day, then the kids are in bed, all that kind of stuff. And we've got to be a little bit loose and a little bit more lenient. Same with nutrition. And that's the biggest one for me in terms of how much of your day that can potentially take up. Because if we're doing some intensive transformation, you've got to be tracking everything that goes into your mouth. Even the 50 milliliters of milk that might go in your coffee, you've got to be tracking that stuff. I've had people track their fish oils, 9 calories per gram. If you're having 1,000 milligram fish oil, that's an extra 9 calories, 9 calories that you're having. It needs to be accounted for. You're not going to be that anal when it comes to someone that just wants to get 10, 20% better, wants to be able to run around with their kids, wants to feel strong, wants to look good, but doesn't want to be super lean. They want to get stronger, but don't want to be Eddie Hall. They want to feel like an athlete, but they don't need to be able to run the 100 meters in 10 seconds, right? So it's always the same principles. Strength training principles are the same, right? Cardiovascular principles are the same. Nutritional principles. We're looking for the same types of foods. We're just doing a slightly more lifestyle sustainable version of that. And then that also means that you can sustain those results over the long haul as well. For me as well, and I know I'm kind of going off on one on this, but with that client, it's very much about forming habits as well.
Mhm.
Because regardless of whether you're a high achiever in life, in your career, you could have created a multi-million pound business from scratch, be an absolute baller there, but your health might have taken a back burner.
Yeah.
You getting a 30-minute workout in a few days a week, that's not something that you've scheduled in your calendar for many years, if ever. So for some of those people, we're just trying to form that habit. We're just trying to get you in for half an hour, a few days per week, just to build that habit in there. That's something that for that person is a transformation, is actually just getting the ball rolling, overcoming that dead weight of kind of doing nothing. So yeah, transformation is all on different levels, whether it be lose your first 10 pounds, your last 10 pounds, being able to do your first push up, or being able to do 100 push ups. It's all a transformation to me.
Yeah, there was a couple of good points in there, and this is kind of two things that were going on around my mind. Interesting that you mentioned with like AI and like it's probably the first part is from a coach's trainer's point of view is those results there, having those photographs, is a marketing tool, and because people can see that, and it's like, look, I took this person from this to this, and I was actually listening to, I think it was Taylor McBroom. On a podcast talking about AI and how it can be used efficiently or help to speed up from kind of a business side of thing,
Yeah.
but a business side of things. But then also how it can have a negative impact of losing that personality of the trainer or the coach and using it to kind of just be really salesy and try and alternate thing. And do you think the first part is, do you think that coaches and trainers are kind of using that in a thought process to try and get ahead and try and get more clients in, as opposed to, you know, the cover of, Netherlands Men's Health is, you said there, set the expectations of you've got 11 weeks. You're probably going to have to have a little bit more cardio at the start. It's probably going to be, this is the commitment that we're going to need if you want that end result, as opposed to just kind of using AI to try and speed everything up for them or have like tweaks and changes on the photographs. And then the second point is kind of from a client's point of view, is like the your book that you mentioned, 100 workouts. People will look at that and think, oh, this is what I need to do. I need to do a 12-week transformation. I'm just going to keep cycling that through, as opposed to thinking, I'm going to do this 12-week transformation because, if you're a business owner, CEO, or even just an everyday person, we're in a world where we want everything now. We can get
Yeah.
everything now. And then have that as a filter system to be like, look, I've got where I want to be in 8 or 12 weeks, whatever the program is, and then try and think, right, now let's try and think about the habits that you mentioned there. I know two kind of like big questions and spoke about that, but does them two kind of make sense?
Yeah, yeah. So first off, from an AI point of view, so I do use AI, right? I use it as it's a fantastic PA, absolutely brilliant, right? It's great to give you ideas, to help you see a different perspective, it's thought provoking, right? You can teach it to do something. You can, but it is very positive. It's always encouraging. You need to not have the balls. You need to tell it. You need to tell it when it's wrong. You need to say no, right? And if you notice, every time you say no, I asked for this, or actually, have you thought about this? It will always say yes, you're correct. Blah blah blah, right? It will always do that. So don't be afraid to think outside the box. Don't go with it literally, whatever it says, whatever you're using it for. Don't be afraid to ask it questions and keep diving into things. It's fantastic as a PA. I'll give you an example. So tomorrow I've got I'm doing like a pre-recorded conference. I'm part of a conference for men over 40, basically. And it's pre-recorded, right? So I've got my videographer coming into here. We'll pre-record for it. Now, for that, I used AI to basically help format the presentation, right? And it came up with some absolutely fantastic ideas. It even came to the point where it's like, would you like me to script this section and this section and this section? I was like, okay, right. And bear in mind, I've not asked it 5 questions or asked it to do 5 things. I've asked it and asked it and asked it and asked it. And the more you ask it, the more you can refine that process. And when you get to the end, it's like, okay, you know what? That's actually really good. If I can sound like that, that's going to be great. The format's going to be there. I'm going to be on point every single time. Now, I looked at it again this morning, and bear in mind, I'm recording it tomorrow. I've completely scrapped the whole thing because if I end up doing that, I'm going to be talking like a robot, basically. I'm going to be almost so on point that I might as well just send out a few pieces of paper or send a PowerPoint presentation out to people and then read it themselves. And instead, what I'm going to be doing, and I said this to a client that I just finished training half an hour ago, I said to him, like, I've literally got the title now. That's it. Right? I'm just gonna just play it by ear and just see what it sounds like, right? And by doing that, it's just gonna sound more organic. So, like, I could have used it. It's given me some ideas and some things I might not have spoke about, and it might trigger some things. And maybe when I'm recording it tomorrow, I might dive into that script if I'm kind of running out of certain ideas. But I'm not going to use it literally. Um, I think when it comes to a transformation process from a client of any level, personally, I've never used it. I believe that coaching is just as much of an art as it is a science, and you could potentially even question some of the science and where AI gets some of the science from, but it's going at things from a very cold approach. It's almost being so literal and it's not there's no empathy in terms of the client themselves. There's no understanding there of what's going on, and especially when it comes to like high end transformation stuff, the little bit of manipulation last minute. There's a lot of art involved in that, a lot of kind of trial and error involved in that. And at the end of the day, AI doesn't understand how that client's feeling. So it's me as a coach to understand, can uh, can Jim push more? Based on his body language, can he push a little bit more? Especially when it's an in-person client, I can tell what their energy levels are like. When it's an online client, I'm just relying on some feedback. I'm relying on some of their workout data, but I've still also got to use some intuition there as well. So for me, AI, chat GPT, whatever, just doesn't have that art science figured out yet. And I don't think it will ever.
Yeah.
I'm also a big fan of just saying, look, coaching is communication for me. It's communication, it's empathy. And again, you could read all the textbooks in the world, but you could still be a horrible coach, right? There's some really, really smart PhDs out there with lots of letters after their name that have never coached an in-person client before, have not done 10, 20, 30,000 hours of in-person coaching and actually solving real world problems, actually speaking to people about what their true problems are. So, for me, again, AI just doesn't have that solved. Um, on kind of the what was the second point? Sorry, you
Yeah,
mentioned.
yeah, I knew that's what I thought I might have to double check that.
Yeah,
I was conscious of doing two things. Just touching on the AI things. I think that's a really good point. I think it can be used for organizing
yeah,
templates because sometimes maybe similar to yourself, sometimes you just need a little bit of an idea of how can I structure this a little bit more and make this flow a little bit more. And like what I
mm,
said a little bit earlier, it can be really useful for those side of things as opposed to just firing a lot of information out there, but it isn't going to take into account that person. And
yeah,
I think, especially from a coach's trainer's point of view, that yes, AI is there as a tool, but it's not going to have all of that information for that person. Like what you mentioned, how are they performing on the on the gym floor? If it's an online client, you might have all of the checklistings, but what if like what you mentioned, they've got a 3 month old baby, they're traveling a lot with work, that there has to be that human element of it. And the whole thing of when we said at the start about the before and after photographs, that isn't just kind of they've done this and this. There might have been times when I know I've had it having conversations of, oh, I'm really struggling with this, I don't think I can do this. And it's kind of, well, all of the checklists that we've put down in terms of these are your non-negotiables that we need to do, it's not taking into account the conversations that you would have to be like,
yeah,
look, do you know what? I know it's challenging. I know this is a little bit of a struggle. Let's try and pivot. Let's change the plan a little bit. Let's work on this so that they then keep moving forward. The second part, which kind of ties nicely what I said there, is flipping it to kind of like the client's point of view of, the seeing these before and after photographs, the seeing kind of like the results that people are getting, but maybe not knowing the nuts and bolts of how to get there, is maybe seeing it, or how would a client, or how would you put it towards the client of, look, this is going to be our 12-week block. You're going to see some really good results in this first bit, but a little bit like what you said about creating habits and long-term habits, and something more sustainable, then building those things afterwards, or trying to maybe slow the process down a little bit.
yeah.
Do you think that's something that clients are sometimes misunderstanding when it comes to transformations, or how do you kind of approach that conversation?
Yeah, so I think there's a big shift in the industry right now with regards to transformation photos. I remember reading something a few days ago, and I think it's related to Google searches. It could be in another search engine, but Google searches. For the first time in a long time, there are more people searching things related to longevity based training than, for example, transformation and aesthetics based training. So, less people Googling things about bodybuilding, high end transformations, photo shoot transformations, aesthetics, and more people actually Googling about, pain free, uh, being, high performing, but with the longevity focus in mind. So, as coaches, we also need to be shifting a little bit more in that direction because that's actually what the consumer, that's what the client is wanting more. And I think that that's absolutely brilliant. For my entire career, the focus has always been on the longevity sides of things, especially come from the background that I did, and even myself, picking up lots of injuries throughout, rugby days and stuff like that. I've always been interested in how we can avoid pain whilst making body composition and strength improvements. And now it just seems that more people, the general population, are becoming more aware of those things. And we see this in person. We see more and more people coming in for a personal training consultation that are speaking about the likes of I had a client the other day say Wolf's Law, right? And it's like, okay, right, okay, so all right, let's speak about Wolf's Law then. And he's like, okay, right, we're applying some load down on the bone. That's going to help reduce osteoporosis, all that kind of stuff. So they're actively coming in, they're Googling, they're using AI to search the strength training, the benefits of strength training in terms of longevity, and they're coming up with this stuff. So as a trainer, we need to be able to know the answers to this kind of stuff because people are talking about osteoporosis, sarcopenia, especially men. We're talking about, testosterone depletion. One of the best ways to help promote that is strength training, all that kind of stuff. So again, we are problem solving as trainers. We're just kind of seeing slightly different problems that want to be solved right now than what we have done maybe in the last 5, 10 years, which has been a little bit more transformation based, a little bit more photo driven. Now people want to get stronger because they want to be able to play with their kids. They don't want to be injured. They want to be standing more upright, all that kind of stuff. Don't get me wrong. Everyone is saying they want to be leaner. They want to lose this little bit around their midsection, all that kind of thing. But yeah, so that's where I think the industry is shifting, and that's where kind of those transformations are shifting in terms of actually transformation in how people feel and how they perform in day-to-day life.
I think that's and I've kind of seen that shift as well, because this is something that conversations I've had in the UK, but in Thailand as well, and it seems to be that people want to be able to do a lot more things rather than being categorized as a bodybuilder, a CrossFitter, a powerlifter. I know for a long time, when I stopped playing as much rugby, I went all in on powerlifting, and I'll be like, yeah, I'm a powerlifter. But then actually, in terms of doing other things, you kind of pigeonholing yourself, and it limits other things. Whereas a lot more people now want to be able to go for a run, play with the kids, go do some strength training. And do you think, just kind of touching on the kind of maybe nutrition side of things, or the expectation management side of things, when we speak about, getting really lean or anything like that, it's kind of, people always look at the extreme, or they hear people who have had not very good experiences when it comes to, a transformation. They were like really hungry, or they, then have issues with other things, as opposed to that thing of, ultimately, like what you said there, people want to get stronger, build a little bit of muscle or tone up, lose a little bit of fat, and ultimately, feel good and be able to feel confident enough to be able to do other things. Do you think that's kind of stemmed from, maybe poor experiences, poor expectation management, poor strategies when it comes to nutrition?
Yeah, we see a lot of these people actually, and again, I think it's because of how the industry has been over the last, say, 5, 10 years, been very, very transformation driven. So when a trainer, a coach, online, in person gets a new client, it's almost been that they expect that that person wants to see one of these high end transformations. And also, the client comes in almost with those expectations. And what's happened is, we've seen this more and more in person, and actually even online, we've seen this. So many people now have gone through that experience already now. When I first started out 20 years ago, hardly anyone, if anyone, had done this before in terms of a transformation. Now it's almost like everyone we see has done, not literally everyone, but almost everyone we see has done some kind of transformation, done some kind of, even some kind of 6 week high intensity boot camp, whatever. Someone's tried to do one of these things. So again, what we're getting now is that shift where those people have realized that that probably wasn't the right approach, and that actually now, when they've stopped, and now this time when they're restarting, it needs to be a slightly different approach that's more longevity focused. So when it comes to high end transformation, like, we can do that, but what happens is someone comes in with an expectation to achieve something in, say, 12 weeks. There's a lot of pressure on us as a coach to make sure that that happens. There's a big push on that nutritional front. We get a little bit more rigid on that front, whether it be a macros, flexible dieting based approach, or a meal plan, whatever. But we're a lot more rigid on that approach. Whereas now, as I said, what we're seeing is people that actually have kind of been burnt by that approach. So we're having to, a lot of people that I work with at the moment, it's very much like lifestyle based. Let's just build some nutritional habits in week one. Let's do a diet audit. Let's not completely change things. Let's not even give you some macros. Let's just do a diet audit and maybe just change a few things. It might well be like, I'll give you some examples from this week. One client, it was like, okay, let's cut this one particular food out here. It's basically packets of crisps, right? Eating crisps at 8 p.m. at night. I know it's not packet of Walker's crisps, 100 calories, it's not the end of the world. But let's just cut that out, right? It's not necessarily a good habit. And let's replace, because his protein intake was quite low as well. Let's replace that 100 calories you're having there with a 30-gram whey protein shake that's also 100 calories, right? Automatically, we've boosted your daily total protein content intake up. We've reduced something in your diet that's not giving you anything right now. And we've done that without having to think about things too much. Don't get me wrong, we could have added a chicken breast in there or 4 eggs or whatever, but that's something you might have had to have weighed out. It's a bit of a pain in your butt during the day. Whereas if you're cool with it, neck a protein shake, right? It's nice and easy. It's not much added to your day, and it's job done. Let's just kind of build that habit up. And for the first few weeks, that's enough to move the dial. That's enough to transform your body, especially now we've gone from zero strength training to now you're doing 3 strength training sessions a week. Your calorie intake, in theory, because he hadn't changed weight in months, his weight was about the same in months. In theory, his calorie intake will continue to be around about the same and around about maintenance. All we've done is boosted his protein by 30 grams and just dropped some wasted food out of there. His body is naturally going to change as a result of that. And then we'll just figure out what's going on after a few weeks, and maybe we'll implement a bit more of a diet around things, depending on where we want to go to next. But honestly, for some people, especially people that are restarting and people that are new starters, you don't have to do a lot to move the dial, but it's about doing those small things consistently and building that into the routine. With that person in particular, it's neck the extra 30 grams of protein shake with your Weetabix in the morning. Done, right? And let's see if we can cut that out at the end of the day, that packet of crisps. If you have to have something around about that time, can you have a peppermint tea or something, right? What can we kind of replace that with? Worst case, have a rice cake, right? It's a few extra calories, but it's not the end of the world, because at the end of the day, it was a habit. He was eating the packet of crisps every single night. It was a habit he'd formed. It's not going to break straight away, but over time, those small changes all add up. And the more consistently we can do that, the quicker that habit's going to reform into more of a positive thing.
100%. And probably that change there, when you mentioned there about, making and seeing progress, how my head would work is, you change something, maybe small like that, but might be really big to that client. There's a
Yes.
reason why he's having those bags of crisps at those time. He then sees progress, and then it opens up, going back to what you said before, that communication side of things. All right, cool. So we've changed this habit. It opens up the conversation of other changes that
Yep.
might have a little bit more I can't think of the word kind of like battle
Yep.
against, because I think especially when it's changing habits, they might have been doing that for a year, 5 years, 10 years. They might have been
Yep.
doing that for a long time, and then it becomes kind of embedded and almost personal to them. It's like, well, why am I changing that?
Mm,
Something that I was thinking about, and I hope I'll word it right, but just when you were saying there about changing habits, and I always think, I can't remember who told me this phrase, but I think it's a good thing to keep in mind. If you do drastic things they're going to happen. And do you think sometimes when we're talking about a transformation, and this is again probably going more towards the coaching side of things, that they have to do something drastic in terms of the transformation? It has to be seen as a challenge, and it has to be something that, the clients that they're working with, they have to have some form of struggle, as opposed to how you worded that with your client with the packet of crisps. This is okay, well, what about this, and providing different
Mm.
solutions as opposed to this is a transformation, it's going to be dead hard, you're going to have to do this, which, don't get me wrong, you said at the start, 11 weeks at the front of men's health. In that time, there's going to be things where there's going to be a sacrifice given, if you like, or anything like that. But do you think that sometimes where coaches get it wrong when it comes to transformation, that it's um, has to be a challenge and really difficult, as opposed to providing solutions and maybe different options of, look, this is how it's going to work?
Yeah, so this is something I do see quite a lot. So part of I suppose part of my online coaching business is working with female competitors, right? So female bikini figure fit model competitors, and some of them are at a very very high level. Um, by being at the level that they're at and the sport that they're in, they've all had coaches before, right? And they've come from a certain background. And this isn't me bad mouthing any coaches whatsoever. But I tend to, and I always make fun of this, but I tend to be someone's second coach. I don't tend to be someone's first coach. It's very rare I'm someone's first coach, right? It tends to be someone that maybe someone has pushed too hard for too long. And eventually that client has figured out, hang on, this, I don't think it should be like this. I think I need to see if there's another option. But what I do end up getting from that person is almost them thinking that what I've given them to do is too easy. They've come in with an expectation that they're not going to get anywhere unless what they do sucks, right? They've come in from a point where, especially at bikini athletes, they've come in from a point where if they're not doing an hour a day on the Stairmaster, they're not achieving something, right? If they're not in the gym for hours every day, if they're not in the gym for 6 days a week, if they've not got 100 sets of glutes every week, their glutes aren't going to be developing fast enough. They're coming in from that mindset. So when you've got me that suddenly like, okay, you know what, actually, I'm and I'm going to be quite simple with this. It's not quite this simple, but I'm going to make you eat more food than what you're used to. I'm going to make you do less cardio than what you're used to. I'm going to make give you less time in the gym than what you're used to and fewer sets than what you're used to. I do get some resistance.
Yeah,
So it does take a little bit for them to kind of start trusting the process. But as soon as they're a few weeks in and as soon as they start to see those changes and actually how easy it can be to see those changes and that they didn't need to keep digging that deep hole for so long, then suddenly something just clicks for them. There are some people that have done their first, say, competition prep with myself, and we've not had to necessarily really do any cardio whatsoever in that prep. They get worried, they get anxious, right? Because it's all we've only got 6 weeks left and I'm still not doing any cardio. It's like, is it working? Yes. Okay, where are you versus 6 weeks prior to your last show? We're like, I'm ahead, I'm leaner. Okay, great. The fact that I've only set you some step targets to do, and your calories are still quite high, and you're only in the gym for an hour, say 4, 5, 6 days a week, whatever time and volume you've got, is somewhat irrelevant. At the end of the day, you're achieving those targets. Um, but you too tend to have that from coaches because some coaches almost want to give that impression that I'm worth it. You've got to train with me because I'm going to push you. And don't get me wrong, especially with in-person coaching, you're going to at the end of the day, you're going to end up, if someone's training with you, someone's going to end up doing a few more reps than what they would have by themselves. Always going to happen. Um, it's not necessarily the same with online, right? When you're logging stuff, depending on how someone's delivering online coaching, if it's through a coaching app and someone's got to log how much weight they're lifting and very PR focused, then and they know you're going to see that data, they're going to push themselves a little bit more and get a few extra reps. But you're not necessarily. I'm not there to be pushing you until you're sweating and puking on the gym floor, and that you're on 1,200 calories a day and you're doing an hour every day on the Stairmaster or something. If things are working without you having to do anywhere near the volume that you were doing before, to be on as lower calories than what you were before, fantastic. And that's going to work in the long run. Healthier hormones, your body's going to recover a lot quicker. And the longevity factor is going to be there as well. Less pain, less inflammation, happy days for everyone.
Yeah, I think a key thing that you said there is when clients, athletes have said to you, "Oh, but shouldn't I be doing this? Shouldn't be doing this?" Are you leaner? Are you losing weight? Are you doing this? And that's kind of the thing, maybe, coming full circle, if you like, about transformations. Um, that's kind of it. If things are working, it doesn't always mean that you have to make things harder. You have to kind of like push things. If it's not broken, don't try and fix it. And
Don't
I
fix it.
think,
Yeah, that's it.
yeah. And I think that's, we've spoken a lot about kind of habits, something long term, and transformations have their place, like what you said at the start. People coming in using your facility for photographs. That's good, and people there'll always be people that want to do that. Whereas actually, sometimes there's a big group over here, which is just a case of like what we said before. I want to feel good. I want to lose a little bit of weight. I want to play with my kids. I want to be able to do this, and they will be able to, dip in and out of the. I don't know whether traditional transformation would be the right word, but those before and after photographs. But yeah, I think that whole thing of beyond kind of like the aesthetics is really important. Quite a lot of topics, content, tangents thrown in there, Gareth. But the last question that I always like to ask is, from everything that we've spoken about today, for the coaches, clients, athletes listening, what would be your take-home points or words of wisdom?
Yeah, I think my thing would be, or my word would be towards coaches. I think we're seeing a big consumer shift at the moment. Clients are asking for different things. We're seeing more awareness in the health and fitness space, especially in 50, 55, 60 plus. Today, like I've personally coached three people that are over 60 today. They don't want to be on the front cover of Men's Health magazine, right? Two women, one man. They want to feel better. They want to move better. They want, one of them has a dodgy knee. They wanted to feel stronger whilst avoiding knee pain. Another one wants to, obviously, everyone wants to feel in shape and lose a little bit of body fat, gain a little bit of muscle. But they're becoming a lot more aware now because of all the stuff they're seeing on television, on social media, about the impacts of strength training on longevity, on osteoporosis, on sarcopenia, muscle wasting, on hormone health. They're seeing the little things about, grip strength. If your grip strength is good, you're going to live longer. That's not literally what's going to happen. Grip strength is only a general show that you are maintaining some strength as you're getting older, right? That's all it is. It's not you come in here to improve your grip strength and we're adding a year to your life. That's not how it works. So I have been kind of trying to correct people on that a little bit. But again, it's great from an awareness perspective. So as more and more people, especially in that population, are becoming more aware, we need to be serving those clients a lot more and shifting towards like speciality in that area, and slightly away from those high end transformation people, because I think again, anyone that's done a transformation, sure, they're always going to happen. They're still going to happen. People, especially if there's people in media that need to get in certain shape in a certain period of time. It needs to happen. But for the majority of the general population, that's not what they need to be doing. What they need to be doing is shifting their mindset to more of a longevity focus. Sure, you want quick wins. You want to see some results over 6, 12, whatever weeks' time. You want to get in great shape, but it's not just what happens in that period of time. It's what happens the rest of your life as well.
Yeah, definitely, absolutely. I thought that was a really good kind of like wrap up of what we've spoken today about today. I was really looking forward to catching up with you, Gareth. Really enjoyed this episode. Enjoyed the last time that I spoke to you as well. But for everyone listening who might have any questions about what we've spoken about today, want to reach out to you or see the content that you put out there, where could people find you or reach out to you?
Easiest place website, thefitnessmaverick.com. I put articles out there, stuff like that. And then you can find me. Instagram's probably the easiest, at the Fitness Maverick. Nice and easy.
Awesome. Well, thanks again, Gareth, for taking time to jump on. Thanks a lot to everyone listening, and I will catch you all at the next episode.